plural site.
Welcome back to Perpetual Giant Machine, the only podcast that makes me come up with a joke every week, but I forget to come up with the joke, and now I'm just kind of explaining myself because I don't have a joke, and there's supposed to be a joke at the beginning of every podcast. I'm John.
I'm Miles.
This month, Pluralsight is offering all of their courses for free, and that got me thinking, is there actually a Pluralsight course that I want to listen to or watch? And I think I've come to the conclusion that the video courses that they offer, from my experience with multiple vendors of these types of professional video courses, are frankly just not worth my time. And that might be a hot take, but it seems like the internet's reaction to this is actually quite similar to mine. So I'm kind of curious now. There's a lot of training material out there. This is a big business. People are making lots of money off of this. But a lot of people, me included, think that it's not even worth our time even if it were free. So I'm trying to figure out where's the value in this, and why do companies keep buying subscriptions to this if they know that nobody uses it? Or maybe people do use it. Do you use it?
Here's my take, right? I think they're good if you have no idea what you're doing, right? And you just want like an introduction. I think having a structured introduction is really nice. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't often know what you're looking for. Like someone's like Python, and like you're not going to go in with absolutely no experience with Python and be like, oh, I can't wait to use tuples. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you don't know what tuples are. Of course, you're not going to be excited about tuples. But the fact that you have like a structured thing where you get to learn about the different data structures in Python, you know what I'm saying? So you don't have to go 3 months into coding a project with Python, suddenly to realize, oh, tuples exist because there's like some offhand thing about tuples. It's good for that or something like that. Getting a good introduction. But I think it's weird that they're marketed towards like professional developers who already have like a good grip on this kind of stuff. They're like, oh yeah, I'm pretty familiar with Python. I do need to like, brush up on like some certain skills, but like they don't want to have to sit through a whole video course, skipping through a whole bunch of topics that they already know about. I think the reason why so many companies have these subscriptions is because it is useful for the people with not a lot of technical knowledge, who are often the people in the higher up positions. They're like, oh, this is pretty useful. I found this pretty useful. And then they're like, just kind of force the whole dev team to use them.
Well, if you're in a higher up position, then why would you be taking a course on? Like, what would a higher up position person want to take a course on?
Someone's describing an issue and they realize they have no idea what you're talking about. So then they brush up on, I don't know, vaguely the platform you're using, kind of.
So like they would take a Python course?
Yeah, you're like, oh, we ran into this massive bug, and they just can't figure out what the hell they're like, why is this taking 12 months? And then you're like, this bug. And like, they have no idea what you're talking about, and they're trying to like figure it out. Why the hell would like writing one line of code take 12 months? Not literally, that's a gross.
I can understand why you would think that, but I think that's really generously optimistic about how much non-technical people, project stakeholders, are actually picking up technical knowledge, especially because they have a team of highly trained developers who are sitting presumably in the same building as them, who they can ask what the problem is, right?
But whenever you work close with technology people, you're usually at least semi-interested in technology. And most people who are interested in technology have at least made an attempt to learn programming at some point. And often with stuff like this. Like, what's the free one?
I mean, a lot of business analysts I know do use vaguely kind of technical stuff, like low-code solutions to things.
But once again, I think the real issue is that a lot of people who have very good knowledge that are missing a few key pieces are often being peddled these courses, which they'd rather just like look up some documentation for, because they've already got a good handle on it.
Yeah, like my main problem with these courses is that I feel like it is the greatest offender of like, this could have just been an email, like we didn't need to call a 90-minute video course over something when you could have just put the key points in a blog post or an article or something like that, or gotten a lot more information and given a conference talk on it and taken it much further and been able to express. I just feel like a lot of these courses too, like they're just not dense. You need to watch them at like 4 times speed or something like that just to get any kind of efficiency out of them. First minute is like, okay, yeah, in the last 5-minute segment, we covered how to do this and this and this. And now we're going to do 3 bullet points of something that would be in a blog post. All right, thank you for watching. I'm going to do another 1-minute outro. In the next 5-minute segment, we're going to go over this and this and this. And then it's like,
yeah, and you're watching like a whole bunch of videos in a row. So it's real irritating to hear the intro and the outro right on top of each other.
Yeah, it's like I tried to do one of these courses for soft skills just to brush up and see if I can take any takeaways on doing soft skill related things like training up other people and giving and receiving feedback and stuff like that.
Yeah, you do really need that kind of junk.
Doing a lot of soft skill related stuff.
Yeah, you're real trash at that.
The video courses didn't help. I'll give you that much. I got maybe like 2 good solid takeaways out of that.
Yeah.
And those 2 takeaways could have been in like a 5 bullet point blog post or like a couple of paragraphs of writing. Like I could describe them succinctly to you in a couple of sentences. That's the kind of key takeaways that we're going for. And
okay, yeah, now I know that you're bad with soft skills. You should have taught me my soft skills in bullet points.
Well, it's so much easier to do. Like with this particular course, right? They were talking about how to create like various materials for internal consumption, right? And literally half of the course was a filming of this guy giving a seminar on the topic that he was trying to teach. And he was just cutting away to various participants in that seminar, like doing the exercise. And like their voices were just fading in and out so quickly that you couldn't actually figure out what anybody was saying coherently. It was literally like the most Kafkaesque. It was ridiculous. And that was like a 1 hour 30 course, and like 45 minutes of it was useless.
Oh, I couldn't. That does sound pretty useless to you.
And that course was not on Pluralsight, just to be clear. But
okay, thank goodness. I was like, you're paying money for this video course, which is just
it was on a paid platform for video courses, but it was not. I'm not going to throw Pluralsight under the bus here. I don't know if they carry that particular course or not, but I did not see it on their platform.
For a poor video seminar.
Like, you could have done some random dude on YouTube. Probably would have gotten to the point 5 times quicker and had 3 times more information to tell me. That's what I'm saying.
It's still being a poorly recorded video seminar, but like it would mainly just be technical issues at the beginning, despite literally everyone there being a software developer.
Well, this was for soft skills, so trying very hard to be professional and.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's right.
Oh my god.
Yeah, that's kind of.
I just don't understand the value proposition for any of this. Like even for technical stuff, you have the open source book style documentation that almost every single programming language or major framework gives you, right? You can learn how to write Angular or React or Vue or Python or Rust or maybe not Haskell, but.
I mean, they're really bad with like giving examples. They're like, or the description of like the variables for functions. It's like FWK word. And then you're like, what does that stand for? And they're like, oh, this stands for the FWK word. Please put your FWK word here. And you're like, what are you talking about? Like, I've never seen this word. And then you like Google it and you still find nothing. I don't know. It's insane. Anyway.
But do you think a 90-minute video course could help you with that?
No. See, that's the thing. It's like these video courses that are guiding you through the entire process of learning a programming language. Whenever I can Google FWK word YouTube, or just like that on YouTube, and then find a whole video where like some guy with a bad mic is like, so the FWK word, I found it pretty confusing, so maybe this will be helpful for you. It's this thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you can find much more concise material if you are familiar with the topic and you just need to brush up on what you're missing. I frequently am like, oh, how do you declare variables in this language? And then like, some of them are like, oh, you don't. You just type the variable name and it'll figure it out for you. And other ones are like, oh, you have to do it in this very particular way. If you do it wrong at all, like it'll yell at you. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, thanks. That's all the info I needed. I don't have to sit through a seminar, skip through 5 videos till they get to variables, and then try to skip around till I find the part on variables in that language.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And the strangest thing is, even for non-technical stuff, like technical writing, foreign languages, stuff like that, frankly, I think the people on YouTube do it better.
It's hard to find a lot of related videos on the topic. Like most of them are one-off videos is the problem with like YouTube, which I think is where these platforms shine once again, just because it's been planned out well. in that sense.
And well, I guess that's true for like the smaller stuff, but let's say you want to learn Spanish, right? You can go on YouTube and say, learn Spanish, and you're going to be presented with a 3-hour course. And this is 3 hours in the good way, where it actually teaches you a lot of stuff on how to speak Spanish, right? At least at a very basic level. Or if you want to go really deep on something, you can just type in Rich Hickey Talk in YouTube, and he will reach into your brain for 40 minutes and rewire it, and you'll come out a changed person. But you're not going to get that on a professional development video course platform, because Rich Hickey's got better things to do than work for any of these people.
It takes time to find the appropriate source. You gotta wade through a bunch of garbage though sometimes. Also, it's kind of nice that they have everything in one place. They've got intro courses on all the different programming languages, and they're all curated. So it's anytime you need to find something, the first result will at least be related to the topic. I guess.
I don't know, dude. The first result for my course was that dude with the random seminar.
You're I don't know. I'm trying to play devil's advocate here, but you are making it kind of hard. I'm not gonna lie.
Like I didn't go dumpster diving for that one. That was the one that came up.
Yeah, that's a really egregious example. I'm not gonna lie. That's pretty rough. I wonder if Skillshare is good. They keep pushing it in YouTube videos. I really doubt it because they're pushing it so much in YouTube videos.
Yeah, I don't even. Are they? I think they are a video-based thing. Yeah, I mean, they're more like consumer-oriented, so maybe like in order to keep subscriptions, they need to make it better. Maybe the corporate ones are worse because like you're not the one making the decision to have it.
Yeah.
But I also feel like there's no way that there's... Okay, how many video platforms are there times how many courses are on those video platforms? I wonder how much sharing there is between them, because I don't know if there is any, but I never do see like call-outs of like, hi, you're on this platform and today I'm going to teach you how to do this. So that's why I'm suspicious, because I feel like that would... Because I always call out, hey, you're listening to Code Points on YouTube, right? It's kind of strange that something that might be commissioned by that platform or written or, created under contract specifically for that platform does not call it out, right?
I don't know. Mojo Jojo doesn't.
Maybe that's just my conspiratorial side getting the best of me.
Yeah, I think that is a little conspiratorial.
I don't know. But regardless, yeah, video platforms... It's like this weird Twilight Zone thing. It's just something is not quite right on them, I feel. Like they pretend to have all of this knowledge, and I feel like all of this knowledge is better enunciated and accessible elsewhere.
It's kind of useful that a lot of them, at least with code, do the things where you type in the code, like, they're like, oh, learn how to use variables. Please type a variable. And then like it checks if you typed a variable. Mm-hmm. Like Code Academy does that. I know they do that a lot. It's not necessary, don't get me wrong, because you can just copy and paste code into your editor or IDE and then just run it and see if it works or not. Mm-hmm. But it's not really necessary. But it's a nice feature.
I mean, the interactiveness is very important for learning code, especially, and a lot of other things as well.
Yeah.
So that is important. I mean, there's also fields where you can get by just reading things.
Well, I mean, a lot of this stuff has like tutorials. Like they're like, okay, here's your starting code. Copy and paste this to your code editor. Run it and see that it doesn't work. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, it doesn't work. And they're like, okay, we're going to get it working with steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. And they go through steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. And if you did it right, by the end of the tutorial, you've gotten like a working version of the sample code. And they're like, okay, here's the completed sample code. Mm-hmm. That's like often the structure of good tutorials, which is basically pretty much the exact same thing with these interactive coding things for like Code Academy. And there's a lot of good free tutorials online. So if you were like, oh, I have to shell out so much money to learn this thing, like you definitely don't, if that's what you're thinking. But
yeah, it might even come down to just learning styles, because I am very good at just reading things and picking things out. And
I really like examples.
Oh yeah, for sure. Examples are important regardless of how you do it. But I guess, I don't know. I don't know that many like auditory first learners, just because like in the field that I'm in, you have to be good at reading things, obviously.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can get a screen reader to work with your code, but I don't think that's many people's first choice.
Man, that's got to be rough.
Yeah, I am deathly scared of losing my vision for sure. I always make sure that things are as accessible as possible when I'm writing the code. But, even when I'm going through and, just closing my eyes and using the screen reader, it's like, oh man, like I know I'm doing the best job I can here. And I know that I'm following best practices. But if I would have no idea, like, that'd be difficult.
Yeah.
I feel like I'd have to have somebody over my shoulder.
I feel like there would be a lot, like, I feel like it's probably hard to use the tools in general at first. You probably eventually get used to them, though.
And also you probably learn to use them a bit better, especially for stuff like code. I'm sure there's some kind of like I hope there's some kind of syntactic narrowing of documents, because oh my God forbid that you have to like read the entire file, right?
Every single time. Oh my gosh.
Your 10,000 line legacy code class that handles everything in the program. Oh, geez.
There's some pretty good tools for revision and pair people nowadays.
So I guess we've kind of covered video stuff. I also want to, are you familiar with like textbook bundles?
No.
So you'll see this on a lot of places, like for some reason, like places that do video game bundles also do programming textbook bundles all the time.
Really?
I don't know why. I mean, like you see, like a couple of them show their cell counts and they're like in the tens of thousands usually. So like, I guess they work, but man, like, God.
I mean, that is how a lot of people get into programming. They're like, I want to make a game. They're like, wait a second. No, I don't.
It's weird stuff like how to do like, DevOps with C# and stuff like that. There are game stuff and there is like, Raspberry Pi, get into programming and tinkering.
You start gaming and you're like, I want to learn how to program. I want to make games. Hell yeah. And then you learn programming, you're like, I don't want to make games anymore. You're like, but I already know the programming and it pays well. And you're like, okay.
Yeah, that's actually how it kind of worked with me. It's like, okay, I'm going to learn programming, how to make things that I want to use, right?
Yeah.
I always want to use games, so let's make some of those. And then you realize that the tangle of everything and how much work it is. And, difficult.
That and it's just a crappy industry compared to like the other programming jobs. Longer hours, less pay.
Yeah, if you wanted to like really go in and grind in a big company compared to every other boring programming job that pays better and is less obnoxious.
It's not like the worst, but it's just comparatively.
Yeah, so the textbooks, I feel like they kind of fall into the same category. Like you can get 6 textbooks for $1, but do you want those 6 textbooks for $1?
Who's going to read through one textbook, much less 6?
I know. You're forced to read through textbooks for college, and people don't do that, right?
I stopped buying textbooks. I was like, I'm saving so much money. They're like, I'll find the problems. Like, am I going to have to pirate this?
Yeah, you missed the real solution, which is the sketchy kid with all the PDFs.
Dude, I hate it whenever like a class is like, oh yeah, so you have to already have the textbook now. I'm like, we're on day 1 and like you should have had the textbook. I'm like, I've literally not bought a textbook for like 90% of my classes and done just fine.
I haven't even had the time to go to the back of the class and see who has the textbook on their laptop yet. Like, give me a minute, dude.
It's insane how many classes you can just use the notes and lectures for.
There are definitely classes for which you do want the textbook, like data structures and algorithms.
Math classes.
Computation theory, logic, all of that stuff. But yeah, totally agreed.
I think I actually did use textbooks just for logic.
Definitely for computation.
I did bad in the class. Nice. Maybe that's why I thought the class was trash. Maybe because I didn't read the textbook.
I mean, I had a good professor, and I still leaned really heavily on textbooks for lots of.
I ain't got the money for that, you know. I ain't got the money. I save so much money.
I feel like the textbooks are even worse though, because like usually the videos have like professional transcripts that you can control F, and the textbooks you can usually control F them, but there's so much text that the control F is often overwhelmed when you have like 100 results for whatever you want.
Yeah. They're confusing though, and I feel like people don't really address that. That's why professors are so useful, and like TAs are so useful in classes. It's not that everything they say is clear, but even to just get something reworded at least once can help you like figure out what you're not understanding correctly and help you wrap your brain around the problem. Sometimes the wording in the textbook is vague and you're like, oh my gosh, what does this mean? Or something like that.
There is something to be said about having somebody to guide you through it and give you the main points, even if most videos are terrible. Yeah. With the textbooks, 1, you don't have that. And then 2, the place where the textbook would really excel would be in being able to reference things quickly. Like with a video, scrubbing around is kind of a pain in the butt. If you have a well-organized textbook, you might be able to go back and reference things better, or you can contain a lot of information. But a lot of textbooks just try and guide you through that topic rather than actually providing that insane amount of information that you would often expect.
Yeah, it's kind of like weird.
Yeah, it's like the worst of both worlds, I feel.
Yeah.
And there is something to be said about, its replacement in terms of like a large class, right? Like if you are taking computation theory and your professor is one person and there are 250 students and he's not available 24/7, that can be a reasonable surrogate for that. But if you're trying to learn in a professional environment, I feel like that's not even remotely useful just because there's so many other sources for things. Because like with professional stuff, like most people have kind of covered it already, especially like soft skill stuff and the basics of technology. The way that you would go about that in a textbook is you would read the whole textbook, which takes a crap ton of time, whereas you could presumably get it in a much more like key points condensed kind of practical thing where because in the professional world, you're not trying to get all of the logical, rigorous vicissitudes of, how this field developed and best practices in the 1970s and why that's not the good idea anymore and stuff like that, especially for soft skills, because that's what they teach you in college is like the history of this whole thing, right?
Yeah.
And that's useful sometimes, but it's not useful all the time. And it's not really a good use of your time if you're just trying to do it for a job.
Yeah. Plus textbook, they keep referencing like old chapters and stuff like that. They're like assumed you've already learned everything up to that point, which isn't how people really use textbooks. Even professors, they'll jump around a lot.
And also LOL code in textbooks, like that just doesn't work. It flows over to other pages. There's not enough room. Ugh.
Yeah.
Ugh.
You have like this really small like screenshot of like,
and the author's coding style is always abominable. It's the person who does like a full indent and then puts the curly brace ahead of whatever the previous line was, like the GNU style. Ugh. Or the guy who pretends that his list parentheses are like curly braces in a C programming language. So there's like 3 lines below your function of just end paren, end paren, end paren, like decreasing indents. Ugh.
I feel you. It's hard to learn. It's just hard to learn. Like, you're writing machine code. It's not easy to wrap your brain around pretty much ever. So you need something. Yeah,
but the scattered resources of the internet are just so vast and so useful nowadays.
They're still scattered. That's the main issue.
They're scattered, but they're so easy to put together because you can just find these networks of people that do this kind of work, right? And then you can just follow them.
If I'm going to be realistic, that takes hours sometimes.
But in those hours, you're actually consuming their content usually. So it's like the exact same thing as if you were.
Sorry to reference something outside the podcast, but remember whenever Jay was like trying to find that thing for his learn Japanese thing, and he was searching for it for like a literal hour at 1:00 at night?
Yeah, he was trying to import the flashcards for some textbook that he was using.
Oh my god! But that took hours just to find that like resource. Where obviously there's no guided practice through doing what he was doing, but it's nice to have everything you might need condensed in a way. Especially with documentation, there's often a lot of functions that literally no one will ever use. They just happen to be in there. And you don't want to have to wade through all those functions to find the one that you're looking for. No one's going to read through the full documentation of your library.
But that also does give you a good idea of what the wider world around you actually looks like, right?
I feel like it's the opposite problem. I feel like the first thing you might come across, just say, is just you're learning C or, you're doing string copy, and you don't realize that there's a safe version of string copy. You just assume everyone uses string copy. And then all of a sudden, everyone's like, yeah, no, you should not use that. I don't know why you've been using that for like literal 3 years or something like that. Maybe for like legacy code, but like, please stop using that and use the safe version. And you might not have ever realized because you've never went through like a guided textbook where like textbook might be like, this is an option, please don't use it.
If that textbook was written in 1984, I can kind of get that, but at the same time, there's so much of this guided reference material that it's really easy to tell nowadays what is within the far-flung reaches of advanced knowledge and what is not, just by looking at the chapter headings of some free resource, right?
Kind of. I feel like the problem with most free resources I've run into is that someone gives up at some point. They're like, yeah, I'll work on chapter 7 tomorrow. And then you're like, oh, they wrote that 12 years ago, and there's not been an update since. They've just fallen off the face of the earth. You're like, okay, guess I'll have to find some other resource. I guess that's just me, though.
The only abandoned stuff that I found is like small talk, which nobody writes anymore. So you kind of expect it to be abandoned. And I will say that was actually one of the few experiences where I think having a teacher might have actually been a great help, because I eventually did learn it, but a lot of it was just reading through the source code of Smalltalk, which is itself written in Smalltalk.
I have no words to say to that.
For the longest time, I did not know how to make a function that took more than one argument.
Yeah, see, you'll run into some weird problems if you only go off of documentation.
But that's for Smalltalk. That's not for technical writing or Spanish or anything that any of these I sincerely doubt that there's a good course for small talk on
Spanish. Screw off.
There's no formal documentation, but there's about a bazillion channels on YouTube that will teach it to you.
Yeah, true. Is learning to play the guitar a job-related skill? Do you think they have that on Pluralsight?
I'm sure that they do, but I mean, I'm sure that it is job-related for some people. Like, if you're in some kind of entertainment industry and you need to do, like, I don't know, like you're a stagehand, but you're all of a sudden, sometimes you need to back something up. Well, Pluralsight's not only available to programmers, and the same goes for every other video platform. I'm sure that there's like professional chefs that might have that as part of their job.
I just pulled up Pluralsight, and like their first thing was just a whole bunch of coding stuff. They don't have anything else.
Okay, well, I don't know what Pluralsight focuses on, but there are a lot of sites that do other things, like how to use Adobe Photoshop or how to do other things, right?
I just thought it would be funny with Pluralsight. Oh, shoot, our bass is just out. Quick, get the programmer to put down a bass line. Oh, wait, he doesn't know how to play the bass. Pull up Pluralsight. I don't know, that was a weird scenario.
Speaking of Kafka-esque nightmares. And that's the show. Thanks to Meydän, that's Meyda with an umlaut N, for their track The Beauty of Maths, licensed under the Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 license, which serves as our intro, outro, and interlude music. You can find more in the description of this episode. Please remember that the opinions expressed in this production may not reflect those of other participants on the show, or those of any participants' past, current, or future employers. They're also probably exaggerated a bit for comedy's sake. Anyway, thanks for tuning in.